Hare Krishna. Start with the Kirtan. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Stottra Satasya and Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Stottra Satasya and Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की जय. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय. श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ की जय. जयराज जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा माई की जय. पतित पावन पंच तत्व की जय. समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय. गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sagitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते जय पताका स्वामी नित्य नामने नमाचार्य पादाय निताय कृपा प्रदायिने गौरकथा दामदाय नगर ग्राम तारणे. नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नित्य नामने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारणे. मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघायते गिरिं यत्कृपा तमहं वन्दे श्री गुरुं दिनतारणं परमानंद Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna, everybody. Today, I'm going to continue with the devotee care program being implemented in ISKCON Sydney. So I will be trying to share whatever I know. By no means I'm not an expert, but I'm just trying to share my realizations. If there are any offenses or anything, please forgive me in this process while I try to share my experience or my understanding in terms of the devotee care. So it's a very wonderful thing that we are actually having this devotee care being implemented in ISKCON Sydney. It's much needed one, wherein the different aspects of the devotees' needs are actually being met from different aspects, in the sense that there are two types of care, right? in terms of material care and the spiritual care. So material care, with respect to that, we take care of the mind and we take care of the body. And typically, in this modern world, we can get help regarding the material care from many people. There are so many professionals who deal with on a day-to-day basis, and they will be able to give us a lot of guidance in terms of how do we take care of the mind and how do we take care of the body. If you have certain problems, then how do we actually overcome that? So all these things, there is a lot of help actually available in terms of the material care that we might be encountering. But as practicing devotees, it is very, very difficult to find the appropriate spiritual care. Now, in those days, from my perspective, I'll share what I understand is that in those days, like maybe 50 or 60, 70 years ago, typically most of the families were living together. And when they were living together, you had the synergy between different people. Automatically, you came to understand how you should actually interact with the different types of people. Be it elders or be it younger generation. So you had a training, and if you were doing something wrong, then typically there is somebody to correct us immediately. Either the grandfather will come and say, or the parents will say, or the aunt or the uncle, they will come and say what to do, what not to do. To give you an example, this is a very typical thing that we tend to give respect to the elderly people. So when the elderly person comes into the room, or when you're sitting, and then when the elderly person comes in, you tend to get up and immediately you bow down to them, or at least give them the space to sit at a bare minimum. This kind of etiquette was basically instilled in the culture right from the young age when we were growing up. In some cases, what I see on a day-to-day basis is that this is again my own perception. Maybe there are many good examples out there, but then when I see in the modern age this kind of a understanding or this kind of a culture is probably not so prevalent, and it is not that there is a problem with only certain type of people. There is the lack of knowledge for the younger generation as of now is probably because of a lot of factors. One, I would say that is many people who have migrated to foreign countries. We live by ourselves, and there is nobody to correct us, and we still want to implement certain type of a culture to the younger generation. In certain ways, when I think about it, I would say that we are kind of people who are standing in the shore of a lake, and when you are about to get inside a boat, right? You have one leg in the boat, and then on one leg you keep it on the land. So, I personally had this experience one time, wherein I was going for a canoe trip, and so I was about to get inside the canoe, and when I put one of my leg inside the canoe, it was not holding properly. And as a result, what happened is that it kept on moving inside the water, and then at the end of it, I could not balance myself, and then I fell into the lake. Right? So the reason why I'm actually bringing up this kind of an example is that I would consider many of us in that kind of a situation where we don't have the appropriate guidance in order to implement certain things in our life, because we don't have the appropriate guidance, right? So when we have the guidance, so let's say for example, if I had known that, okay, the canoe is going to move, and then I had to hold, or I had to place my hand somewhere in the ground, so something like that. That was my first time I was ever doing it. So when if I had the prior information, then obviously I would have taken care of it. Similarly, spiritual life is very, very important that we don't make certain mistakes, and sometimes what happens is that if some people make a mistake and there is no way to get out of it, then they will say that spiritual life is not for me, and they will ultimately give it up, and then they will actually walk away from spiritual life. More so that if their experience is not good in Krishna consciousness, they would the typical person will say that Krishna consciousness is not for me. This is not my cup of tea. And then even though they may not have done the right things, but it is also the responsibility of the senior devotees who have been practicing for quite a long time, be it 1 year or be it 5 years or be it 10 years, how many ever years it could be. It could be that it is the responsibility of the senior devotees to try to help those kind of people who are actually coming up in Krishna consciousness and give them the appropriate spiritual care, so that way they don't have to do any mistakes, and then they can actually grow nicely. So it is more important that we need to understand what are the needs of a new devotee, right? We would have faced so many inconveniences, or we would have faced certain situations where we have not been able to we would have felt that we are not being taken care of, or we don't know who to approach to for when we have the right questions. So it becomes important that if we know who we can actually approach, and then we can actually get our questions clarified, we might have progressed very quickly in our Krishna consciousness. So that is why the right association comes very, very important. The proper association for the devotees is very, very important. And it is also important from the senior devotees' point of view is that how they actually set as an example for a neophyte devotee to actually come in and then take their example and then follow in their footsteps. Right? So in the process, we also need to know how to actually learn in getting the information from the senior devotees. And that is where if there is a system of a mentor and a mentee, it becomes much more easier for them to actually follow. We see this actually very wonderfully implemented in the Bhakti Viksha system, where the new devotees, they come in and then they go through a program for 2 years or 3 years, and then they basically try to understand how each and every aspect of Krishna consciousness. They begin a journey when they are not even chanting even one round, but then so slowly bringing them to 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, like that. They start understanding how to do this, and then how to do Mangalarti, how to do Tulsi Puja. So many things are there. When you have somebody to guide you, it becomes much more easier. But on the way, we have to be very careful in avoiding certain aspects of interactions that we actually see in the external world or in the material world, which over here it might result in an aparadh. And as a result, we have to be very, very careful in how we actually interact with the senior devotees, and how should the interaction between the senior devotee and the neophyte devotee should be. And it is wonderfully explained by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction. Right? So he gives 6 types of exchanges between the devotees. And this exchanges happen over a period of time. As the neophyte devotee gets introduced to a senior devotee, and they get over a period of time, they observe the senior devotee executing the duties, how nicely between material and spiritual responsibilities, how they are able to balance the two, and how they are actually able to grow in spiritual life. So when they observe it, it becomes much, much easier. That is why the proper association for an upcoming devotee is very, very important. And that is why this devotee care program is very important on guiding the people in the right path and then helping them to grow nicely. So, out of the 6 exchanges, or the 6 exchanges that Rupa Goswami is actually explaining in the Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami is saying that, giving gifts and accepting gifts is basically the 2 exchanges. Giving prasadam and accepting prasadam are the next 2 exchanges. And the last 2 exchanges is very, very important in terms of the interaction between the devotees, which is basically that opening up your mind and then listening to the devotees. These are 2 aspects which are very, very important in the devotee care. Now, when we think about why somebody will not open up, or what will make somebody to open up to the other person, right? One is obviously insecurity, right? Insecurity is in the aspect that, okay, if I open up my mind, will that person actually take advantage of me? This is a typical thing that we encounter in the material world, right? So you basically go ahead and then teach someone whatever the tricks that you know, or whatever things, whatever problems that you know of. Then there is somebody there to take advantage of you, and then they will basically try to push you down in the corporate ladder and then try to go above you. This is a very typical scenario that we see in the material world. So over a period of time, we have been so much experienced this kind of a behavior in the material world, and as a result, we are not ready to trust anyone. We are not ready to trust anyone to open up our mind and then talk to people and then get some guidance. This is one of the biggest problems that anybody coming into Krishna consciousness for the first time that they will face. I faced it when I entered into Krishna consciousness. I faced it for the first time. Like, how can I actually talk to somebody? Will that person actually think low of me? Will he take advantage of me? So things like these, we have so many thoughts that are actually going on in our mind, and it becomes very difficult because we have not had a positive experience in the material world. Very few of us might have had an experience. I did have one experience where my manager in my first job, he was a very nice person. So to a certain extent, he is the only person who I would probably trust. Even friends are not, very good friends outside of the material world, right? We might have been very good friends in school, but then when you actually come out, and then after that you are actually getting married, and then you're having kids and all these things, you go and invite a friend for certain thing. They will say that, oh, I'm busy for this, I'm busy for that, and I can't actually do this, and so then you start to think, where is my friendship gone? Who do I trust? Who I can actually talk to? There is probably nobody. So this is a very typical scenario of anybody who's coming into Krishna consciousness who would face. So insecurity is number one issue. Number two is even more graver issue is that is gossip. So we have seen so many instances where the very first thing that we do is that you say that, can you keep a secret? I heard something. Can you keep a secret? Now, first thing that we need to understand is that if it is a secret, why do we want to even tell that to the other person? If it is a secret, you should keep it to yourself. There is no point in actually telling that to the other person and then, letting out the secret. And then later, we try to say that, oh, that person actually let out the secret. So we have seen so many instances where when somebody comes and tells something in confidentiality, then we don't try to keep it to ourselves as a secret. Immediately, our mind thinks like, okay, where can I share? Or how I can share, right? This is one of the biggest problems in terms of what Rupa Goswami is actually talking about is that we have a problem with our tongue. There are two problems that Rupa Goswami points out with our tongue. One is eating and the second thing is speaking. Prajalpa. That is what is called as gossip. Now actually Prajalpa can be in a good way as well. Talking when Prajalpa is basically talking about the materialistic things. But then materialistic things can also be in a way useful for a devotee. For example, when Shukadeva Goswami is actually talking about King Vena and how he is a bad character and how he has to be, how he is actually killed by the Brahmanas and all those things. When he is giving that as an example, then it is in the proper sense. The Shukadeva Goswami is actually using the materialistic example in the proper sense. But when we use it in most of the materialistic sense, we tend to see what is the fault with the other person. We tend to find what is, we tend to see, we tend to embark on a journey of fault finding, which is very, 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 very bad for our growth in Krishna consciousness. Right? So, gossip, the prajalpa, is basically one of the other things which it is very, very difficult, or rather to overcome, because we have grown to think that, okay, I need something to feed my mind, right? My mind is always looking for something that is new, right? When you open up the newspaper today, right, whatever that we see as of today is only prajalpa. That Prabhupada says that there is no need for us to actually go and read the newspapers because they are of no value, right? What are we going to gain by reading how a person is actually leading their life, or what happens in this material world? Obviously, it is not of much interest. But Prabhupada says that if you want to use it in the service of Krishna, then it will be useful for you to strike a conversation with somebody. So we need to understand what kind of a use it is to start a conversation, or to do the preaching, or to be effective in preaching. We can try to understand what is the current affairs. But then, if we want to keep on feeding our mind only with those kind of thoughts, then it is not right for us. Because whatever consciousness that keeps on going inside our mind is what is going to affect it is going to reflect in our spiritual practices as well. So we have to be very careful in the gossip aspect. So because when somebody is confiding in us and trying to tell us something, we don't want to keep it as a secret, but then we actually let it out. And so what happens to the person who actually confided with us is that we have completely destroyed their future, or we have brought it into the limelight with everybody, that everybody looks at them and then they think like, oh, this Prabhu or this Mataji is actually doing this kind of an activity. And then it becomes very difficult for that Prabhu or Mataji to actually come up in Krishna consciousness. They would obviously leave everything and then they will actually go away from Krishna consciousness. So this is the second problem, that why somebody will not open up their mind and then confide in someone. Insecurity or gossip. Right? So then we need to understand, okay, then it becomes a bigger problem now that, okay, who do I trust? How do I trust somebody? That is a problem on one hand. On the other hand, we have another issue where, let's say for example, that the mentor is actually having the right mentality to correct the other person when they come in and confide in them, and then after that, they give all the good feelings and all those things, and then they are saying that, okay, you have confided in me, and then after that you are actually taking the input. You want to take the input from me, okay, no problem. The mentor is ready to give an input to the mentee, but if the mentee is unable to accept the criticism, it becomes an even bigger problem. So then we have to understand, okay, is the mentee even ready to accept the criticism? If they are not ready to accept the criticism, there is no point in actually giving an input to the mentee. So the mentor is going to feel obviously useless when the mentee is not even in a ready state to accept the criticism. So that is why it is very important that both the mentor and the mentee have to be on the same platform to understand and who is helping who. We have to understand from a mentee perspective, we have to understand who is our friend and who is our enemy. Because most of the time, what would happen is that the mentor will actually say something which is contrary to whatever the belief that we have had so far in the material world. In the material world, when we go for certain type of an input with certain people for certain type of a problem, then we will see that the approach in which the solution is actually given is completely different than an approach given by a devotee in the Krishna conscious platform. In a Krishna conscious platform, the advice would be in such a way that, it is something that we have never encountered in our life and it would not be actually palatable for us. So if it is not palatable for us, we find it difficult. That this is the very biggest problem in most of the implementation, that the mentee has to be ready to accept a certain criticism. If the mentee doesn't have the right frame of mind, it becomes very difficult to grow in Krishna consciousness. The faith will not grow. So, to give you an example, so one time, Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I'm telling this example to make us understand what is the mood of Mahaprabhu and how he is actually accepting criticism. So one time what happens is that as Mahaprabhu, he is in his heart, and then Ramachandra Puri, he would come and then he will always find some or other fault with Mahaprabhu. He will always try to find out something or other, and then he will always criticize Mahaprabhu as to you are doing this, you are doing that, and that. So one day, when Ramachandra Puri actually comes into the in the place where Mahaprabhu is actually living, he sees that there is actually a line of ants which are actually going there. So immediately Ramachandra Puri says that so Mahaprabhu, you are basically a mendicant, a sannyasi, but you are addicted to sweets. Otherwise, why would you even have these ants actually coming into your house? So this is the criticism that Ramachandra Puri actually makes. And Mahaprabhu hears this criticism, and right from that day, he says, he takes it in a very positive manner. And Mahaprabhu says that, Ramachandra, irrespective of where the input comes from, I will take it in a positive sense that I have to change and I have to be an example to somebody else to follow. And as a sannyasi, it is my duty to follow those principles. And I should set an example for others. So as a result, immediately Mahaprabhu gives up eating sweets. Even before that also, he was not eating sweets. But then, just because this criticism came, Mahaprabhu completely avoided everything in terms of sweets, taking sweets. So that is the right mentality by which one should understand what is the angle in which the mentor is actually giving the mentee the advice on how to change the things, or what is the solution to the problem. Right? One thing which Prabhupada always says is that there is no material solution for a material problem. There is only a spiritual solution for any type of problem, be it a material problem or be it a spiritual problem. There is no solution, there is no material solution for a material problem. Because it might be true for today, but it may not be true for the next day. So it is always going to be changing. It is going to be, it is a material. By nature, it is temporary. And as a result, whatever solution that we come up with, it's always going to be on the temporary platform. So when a mentor is actually giving an advice to the mentee, it has to be on a spiritual platform. And when the spiritual platform solution is actually given, it is not that the mentor is being insensitive to the problem of the mentee, but that is the only solution. Time and time again, we have seen that Prabhupada says that there is only spiritual solution. So there is no other way. So as a result, the mentee has to understand from the same angle. So to give you an example, again from the Shastra, right? So Vyasadeva, we all know in Bhagavatam, right? In Vyasadeva, he basically starts to compile the Bhagavatam, or rather all the Vedas at the beginning of Kali Yuga. He understands that the Kali Yuga people are going to be very downtrodden, and they are going to be having manda buddhi, laziness, and then they will not be able to. They are very restless and dull-headed and all those things, right? So basically, Vyasadeva understands this, and then he starts to write different. So he starts to compile the Vedas, and then he starts to compile all the Puranas, all the Upanishads, and everything. And then for less intelligent people, Vyasadeva starts to write the Itihasas, mainly Mahabharata, right? And within which we have got the Bhagavad Gita. So he writes about all these things, and then in spite of working tirelessly for the welfare of all the people, Vyasadeva is not happy. He's feeling incomplete. So he's unable to understand what is really happening there, because he's trying to write everything, all the four Vedas, all the Upanishads, all the Puranas. Everything he has written, but then he is still unhappy. He's put so much of work into that. So, as a result, he goes and then he asks Narada Muni, his spiritual master, I've been trying to help these Kali Yuga people by coming up with all these compilation of all the Vedas and all the Upanishads and everything, so that way it will be available to the Kali Yuga people. But then I'm still feeling unhappy. So the moment Vyasadeva goes with a problem and he tells that to Narada Muni, Narada Muni immediately, the very first thing that he does is he chastises Vyasadeva. The same thing that we can actually understand in many situations is that even in the case of the interaction between Krishna and Arjuna, Arjuna and Krishna were having a very happy conversation as friends. But then, when Arjuna was completely bewildered and then he was trying to understand, like, okay, what is happening? I don't know what to do. You instruct me on what I should do. Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. Right? I have been overcome by so much of grief that I don't know what to do. And as a result, I would like you to instruct me what I should do. And what is the first thing that Krishna says? He is saying, you are basically speaking like a very great Pandita, but you are fool number one. If the same thing happens to us in kind of a materialistic point of view, when we go and approach somebody, and when the opposite person is actually coming and saying, like, you are fool number one, and then, they are saying that, what you are doing is wrong, how would we feel? This is what, but we want to be cajoled, we want to be said like, oh, that's okay, you are doing very nicely and all those things. Why? Because it just boosts our ego. Right? So the very first thing that a spiritual master will do is basically to make us understand chastisement is the first lesson that we need to get. Mahaprabhu always says, one who chastises you is your friend. One who praises you is your enemy. This is the first principle that we need to understand. One who is chastising you, he is having the best interest in you. But that doesn't mean that we have to be insensitive. But there is an art of chastisement as well, right? To give the right information to the person. So when we try to give that information to them, then it will be taken in the right context, as how Krishna is actually giving it to Arjuna, and then Arjuna was able to follow it. So as a mentor, it becomes the responsibility. It becomes the responsibility of the mentor to give the right instruction. When we give the right instruction, then it will be taken in the proper sense. So it is actually on the both sides. One is how the instruction is given by the mentor, and how it is actually accepted by the mentee as well. So when we surrender, we are actually seeking the help. At that point of time, we don't have any authority in trying to say that, if you say it in this way only, I will be able to accept it. If you say it nicely, I will accept it. If you chastise me, I won't accept it. We should be ready to accept in whatever way that we actually get the instruction. Right? Because a mentor is having the best interest of you, or rather the mentee. When the mentor is having the best interest in the mentee should also develop that interest in trying to understand how I can actually take that instruction and then implement it. So here, coming back to the story of Bhagavatam, where Narada Muni is chastising Vyasadeva, right? So he says that, you have written so many things about all the Shastra. Yes, wonderful. But it still contains a tinge of materialistic desires, and all the Vedic literatures that we have compiled. The four Vedas, the Upanishads, and everything, they are actually containing all of them have at least a tinge of materialistic desires. And as a result, we will not be able to find the true satisfaction. That is why Prabhupada always mentioned that there is no material solution for a materialistic problem. There is only spiritual solution for a materialistic problem, or even a spiritual problem. So this is exactly being echoed by Narada Muni as well here. That how Narada Muni is saying that you have written you have compiled the literature which has a materialistic attachment towards that. So as a result, it is not going to give you happiness. So what should you do? That's when Vyasadeva, or rather Narada Muni, is explaining to Vyasadeva that you should actually compile the Bhagavatam, where you should actually completely talk about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. When we understand the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, then you will be completely happy. Because it is on a spiritual platform, completely on a spiritual platform. It is not having anything that has to do with dharma, artha, kama. It is not based on all these things. It is completely based on devotional service to the Lord. When we identify all those things with the devotional service of the Lord, even if it is, Narada Muni is saying that even if it is not, even if it is imperfectly composed, but if it has the full descriptions of the Lord's name, fame, form, and pastimes, just by saying that, everybody will be purified. So that is the greatness of basically understanding from a spiritual platform. So here in this scenario, what we can understand is that Vyasadeva was ready to accept the instruction from Narada Muni. So the duty of a mentee is basically to understand from that aspect that, okay, how can I actually take the instruction and how can I actually implement it? And when Vyasadeva got the instruction from Narada Muni, obviously what we got in return was Bhagavatam describing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord and how we become completely purified by actually listening to the spiritual the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Obviously, Bhagavatam is complete in nature. It is not imperfectly composed or anything, because it has been composed by Vyasadeva himself, who is the literary incarnation of the Lord. So obviously it is complete in nature. So when we try to understand what is the right angle in which we will be able to gain the knowledge from the mentor, then the mentee has to be able to take the criticism in a positive sense. But at the same time, having the right understanding, or the understanding between the mentee and the mentor, that whatever is actually revealed to them, revealed to the mentor, will be kept in confidential. And that is what is basically called as the interaction between the two, mentor and the mentee. Is that listening to the devotee, and not only that, confidentially expressing to the mentor. So this typically happens as per again Rupa Goswami. This typically happens between a Kanishta Adhikari and a Madhyama Adhikari. A Madhyama Adhikari is somebody who will basically who's having the interaction with many people. that a Uttama Adhikari or a pure devotee, doesn't really care about all the bodily needs, or he completely depends on Krishna. Right? A pure devotee, he is completely dependent on Krishna for himself. And a Uttama Adhikari, he sees everybody on the same platform. A Uttama Adhikari will see everybody as the soul. And so as a result, he doesn't see any imperfections or anything that is wrong with the other person. So as a result, he is completely on a different platform. But Prabhupada, being a pure devotee, when he actually went to US and then he started this Krishna consciousness movement, he kept the needs of the different people who he encountered, and whatever solution that he offered, Prabhupada offered for them, was purely practical basis. Right? So he was constantly trying to understand what is the need of their devotees and how he should actually give the instructions to the devotees. Depending on the type, he was basically giving the care for them. And most of the things that we can actually learn is based on whatever pastimes that Prabhupada actually had with his disciples, how he actually took care of them. Right? So one of the instances where Prabhupada actually gave the appropriate care is that when Prabhupada was in New York, and he was actually having an episode of twitching in his hand and his leg, and then he was unable to speak properly, and then he was feeling a pain in the heart, and he was actually requesting help from Ayurvedic doctors in India. He instructed his disciples to write to the Ayurvedic doctors in India and then try to get the help. But in the meantime, he was actually in the hospital. Then he was actually requesting the disciples to write to the Ayurvedic doctors in India and then try to get the help. So when he was actually doing that, his disciples were wondering, how it is going to take a long time, and then try to get the help. And so Prabhupada said that, at that point of time, he said that all you can do is, until something happens, all you can do is basically chant, and then you can pray to Krishna. What is the prayer that Prabhupada said was that if you so desire, Krishna, please let our spiritual master be with us. He has unfinished duties that he is actually doing for his spiritual master. So please help him complete those activities, and then try to resolve the medical issues that he is actually having. So following this that instruction, all the disciples actually took it to their heart, and then they were constantly doing at that point of time there were only two places where they had established, that is one in New York and one in San Francisco. And these two places, and there was constant chanting going on throughout the night and throughout the daytime, and everybody was actually chanting throughout. And then based on that, and after that also, what happened is that Prabhupada actually got completely fed up with all the doctors coming and checking, because they were completely indifferent to Prabhupada. And he kept on saying certain things, and the doctors would not even listen to him. And then he told Brahmananda Prabhu, he said, somehow or other, take me out of this hospital. Even if I have to leave this body, I will actually leave it amongst the devotees. And then after that, he gave that instruction. And Brahmananda Prabhu took it to the heart. And he basically somehow, he went and he asked, all the disciples went and they pleaded with the doctors. And then the doctor said, we can't let you go out. in this kind of a situation, we can't go out. Let you go out. But then the end result was that is Brahmananda Prabhu had to find a different mechanism, and then he had to, for lack of a better word, and the description that is actually given is that is they had to smuggle Prabhupada out of the hospital, and then they had to take him out, and then they brought him to the New York, where they were staying in New York. And then Prabhupada at that point of time made a promise to Brahmananda Prabhu that because you took me out of the hospital and you did not let me die there, Prabhupada said that I will ensure that you will not go to the hospital and you will actually leave your body without going to the hospital. And the same thing happened in Vrindavan when Brahmananda Prabhu was actually doing it. The reason why I'm trying to tell the story or the pastime is that how the simple instruction, how that instruction was taken to the heart by the devotees, and how actually Prabhupada protected them at each and every point. So when we try to follow the instructions of the mentor, because they are our best friend, and when we approach the mentor, we need to have that open mind to accept that instructions and then implement it with our full heart. I'm pretty sure that will be true because it is on a transcendental platform. The solution is on a transcendental platform. And the integrity on the part of the mentor is that the secrecy or the confidentiality is maintained. And that is the type of culture that the devotee care mentorship committee is actually trying to bring in the ISKCON Sydney Yatra. When we bring in that kind of an interaction, when we bring in that kind of a interaction between the mentor and the mentee, then obviously every one of us is going to feel that as a family. We are a family. We are in this together. And there is each and every one of us there to help each other. It is not like a material world where we will be left out. And we are growing together in Krishna consciousness. And it is very, very important that we come together as a family and we are in this together. So with that, I will try to finish here. Thank you for allowing me to share my realization on how the interaction should be between the mentor and the mentee. I hope it was useful. If there was anything offensive or anything, if I said, please forgive me. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.